I grinned broadly and said, "Thanks for the upgrade, my dear Logan," as he entered the living room. He stood there looking far too proud of himself, tossing his sunglasses onto the coffee table. He was dressed sharply in a suit and brand new shoes. Nearby, his suitcase was splattered with upscale brand names. First class to Hawaii, luxury hotels. This is the life I've been missing. Rachel. I was unable to resist. I started laughing. "What's so funny?" He frowned. I muttered, "Oh, Logan," and shook my head. "You have no idea what you've done. I'm 35 years old and my name is Rachel. I work in cybersecurity and I've been married to a charming but troublesome man for the past 8 years. Logan was always the dreamer and the slick talker. Everything sounded thrilling to him, like some grand scheme. As he hopped from one poor concept to another, I was the one who kept a regular job and made those schemes work. I wanted to think we were a team, so I disregarded the warning signs, the hidden bank accounts, and the justifications for our lack of success. However, Logan made a mistake at 3:00 a.m. last week that he was unable to overcome. Upstairs, I was asleep when it occurred. He must have crept downstairs to my laptop after waiting till I was sound asleep. I had learned how to recognize scams at work, but I never imagined that I would need such abilities at home. Logan gained access to one of my credit cards via my laptop that evening. He took pictures with his phone, copied the information, and then retreated to his bed as if nothing had occurred. As I was sipping my coffee the following morning, my phone began to ring with notifications. I froze when I launched my banking app. Nearly $8,000 was spent on first-class flights to Hawaii, designer clothing, and pricey watches. Then it dawned on me. Logan was it, of course. But I grinned rather than freaked out. He did not utilize a personal account with the card. It was a phony credit card connected to a course. I work for a fraud detection company that teaches companies how to identify and prevent financial crimes before they get out of hand. An automated alert is sent directly to the authorities for each and every transaction on specific blacklisted accounts. It's a method meant to apprehend even the most cunning offenders. Logan was unaware that he had just stepped into the ideal trap. My phone buzzed that morning, alerting me to a high-risk transaction that had been discovered on one of our test accounts. As I read the information, my stomach fell. Logan, my own spouse. I immediately called Olivia, my lawyer. I rapidly narrated everything to her, telling her, "You're not going to believe this." She laughed without even trying to contain it. In between giggles, she continued, wait, let me get this straight. Did he steal a fake card, the one connected to the identification of fraud?" "Exactly," I responded, my voice unable to contain my joy. "I don't believe he knew what he was doing. He most likely believed he was being shrewd." "Clever." Olivia snorted. "Alerts will sound for every charge he makes. Has the police made contact yet?" "Not yet," I replied, "but it's only a matter of time." I kept silent for the following 3 days, curious to see how far Logan would push this. 3 days later, I discovered a message on the counter in the kitchen. "I'm taking a little break. Avoid waiting up." That meant exactly what I knew. He was living lavishly somewhere with the money I had taken. I saw the fraud notifications come in every night. Upscale dining establishments, hotels with 7 stars, extravagant shopping trips. Every notification was a minor triumph. He thought he was getting away with something. He had no idea he was only tightening the noose around his own neck. On the 4th day, my phone rang. "Miss Timothy, this is Wayne Rooney from Federal Investigations. We've identified significant fraudulent activity linked to your account. Do you know who might be responsible?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes," I said, "my husband." There was a pause. "Your husband." I explained everything, how the card was part of a cybersecurity program, how Logan had unknowingly used a flagged test card for his grand escape. Wayne Rooney let out a low whistle. "That's a new one," he said. We'll need a formal statement, but based on what we've already flagged, he's in serious trouble." By the time Logan strolled back through our front door, his ego bloated from a week of indulgence, I was ready. He stepped into the living room like nothing had happened, wearing the spoils of his stolen spree designer clothes, expensive accessories, even a new watch. "Thanks for the upgrade," he said with a cocky grin. "You really outdid yourself this time." I smiled back, crossing my arms. "So did you." And just like that, the doorbell rang right on cue. Logan's face fell as he opened the door to find 2 federal agents waiting. "Mr. Timothy," one of them said, "we need to have a word with you." And just like that, his little joy ride came to a screeching halt. I couldn't hold back my laughter. It bubbled out of me before I could stop it. Logan frowned, clearly expecting me to be angry. "What's so funny?" he asked, his voice sharp. "Oh, Logan," I said, shaking my head. "You're about to find out." He dropped his fancy duffel bag onto the floor with a loud thud, looking smug. "Seriously, though, Rachel," he said, shrugging off his expensive jacket and tossing it over the couch, "you should have told me about that card sooner. Just imagine how much fun we both could have had." I leaned against the kitchen counter, crossing my arms. "And how exactly did you think this was going to end?" He smirked, kicking off his shoes like he didn't have a care in the world. "You're always so uptight about money. It's not like you couldn't afford it. I figured you'd get over it once you saw how happy it made me." His confidence would have been annoying if it wasn't so ridiculous. I bit back another laugh, knowing that every word he said was just digging him in deeper. Later that night, as Logan disappeared into the shower, humming some out-of-tune song, I picked up my phone and sent a quick text to Olivia. "He's back, ready to move forward." Her reply came instantly. "Perfect. I'll call Wayne Rooney." For the past week, Olivia and Wayne Rooney had been building the case against Logan. Every single transaction he made had been tracked and recorded, from the designer stores to the luxury hotels in Hawaii. Logan thought he was untouchable. He had no idea that he had walked straight into a trap. The next morning, I met Olivia for coffee to finalize the plan. "He's got no defense," she said, scrolling through all the evidence we had gathered. The fraud alerts, the charges, and now his own words from last night. It's airtight. Wayne Rooney is ready to bring him in. They're coordinating with the local police to make the arrest. I nodded, finally feeling the weight of everything settling in. "And what happens after that?" Olivia sighed. "He'll face multiple charges: fraud, identity theft, and unauthorized use of a financial account. With the amount of money involved, it's not going to be a small punishment. Best case, he cuts a deal and avoids jail time. Worst case," she hesitated, "he could be locked up for years." For a brief moment, I wondered if I should feel sorry for him. But then I remembered his smug grin, the way he flashed his stolen goods, how he never once stopped to think about the damage he had caused. This wasn't just a mistake, it was a pattern, one I had been blind to for far too long. That evening, Logan sat on the couch, scrolling through his phone, completely unaware that his world was about to come crashing down. I heard a knock at the door. My heart raced not with fear, but with anticipation. I walked over and opened it to find Wayne Rooney standing on the porch with 2 uniformed officers. "Good evening, Miss Aman," Rooney said. His voice was calm and professional, but there was a hint of warmth. "Is Logan home?" "He's right inside," I said, stepping aside. "Come in." Logan looked up from his phone, his eyebrows pulling together in confusion. He sat up straighter. "What's going on?" he asked. Wayne Rooney walked toward him, his presence making the whole room feel smaller. "Logan Aman, you're under investigation for multiple counts of credit card fraud and unauthorized use of financial accounts. We'd like you to come with us for questioning." Logan's face turned pale. His confidence disappeared in an instant. "What? No, this has to be a mistake," he stammered, looking at me desperately. "Rachel, Tell them this is crazy." I crossed my arms and tilted my head slightly. "I don't know, Logan. You've been pretty busy lately. Maybe you should explain it to them." The officers began reading him his rights and guiding him toward the door. Logan's panic grew. "You can't do this, Rachel," he shouted. "This is a setup. You're my wife. Aren't you supposed to stand by me?" I leaned against the doorway, my expression calm. "Funny," I said. "I thought husbands weren't supposed to steal from their wives. Guess we're both learning something today." Logan's face twisted with anger and desperation. "You won't get away with this." I smiled. "Oh, Logan, I already have." The door closed with a sharp click as the officers led him away. The living room felt eerily quiet. I stood there for a moment, staring at the empty space where he had been just minutes ago. My heart pounded not from fear, but from the weight of the moment. He was gone, finally. But this wasn't over. Not yet. An hour later, my phone rang. It was Olivia. "He's with Wayne Rooney now," she said, her voice steady. "They've started questioning him. From what Rooney told me, Logan's already trying to twist the story in his favor." "Of course he is," I said, rolling my eyes. "Let me guess he's playing the victim." "Spot on," Olivia said with a dry laugh. "He's claiming you gave him permission to use the card. But don't worry, between the fraud alerts, the charges, and your recording, he doesn't stand a chance." The next morning, Wayne Rooney called with an update. "We've got everything we need," Rooney said. "Your husband's sorry. Soon-to-be ex-husband admitted to using the card, but he says he didn't know it was part of a fraud detection program. He's trying to blame the mix-up on you." "That sounds about right," I said, leaning back in my chair. "What happens next?" "We're moving forward with the charges," Rooney explained. "He's facing multiple counts of fraud and unauthorized use of a financial account. Given how much money was involved, he's looking at serious consequences. The buyer protection programs flagged all his luxury purchases, so those are being reimbursed. You won't have to pay a single cent." Relief washed over me instantly. For days I had been carrying the weight of Logan's actions, afraid he might somehow escape the consequences. But hearing Rooney's confidence, I realized this was my victory. "Thank you," I said, "for everything." "Don't thank me," Rooney replied. "This case practically solved itself. You handled this brilliantly." The fallout hit Logan harder than I expected. Word spread quickly among our mutual friends. It wasn't long before his carefully crafted image of the charming, carefree husband started to fall apart. Judith, the woman I had suspected he was seeing, apparently dumped him the moment she heard about the charges. The designer clothes he had flaunted confiscated. The flights he had booked canceled. The banks froze his accounts. One evening my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Rachel." Logan's voice came through, low and tired. I need to talk to you." I couldn't help but laugh. "Logan, the only thing you need to do is figure out how to explain yourself to the judge." "Please," he said, his tone shifting to desperation. "I messed up, okay? I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was just what?" I cut him off, my voice cold. "Just trying to steal $80,000 from me. Just hoping I wouldn't notice. Just counting on me being too blind or too forgiving to stop you." Silence. Then, finally, in a small voice, he muttered, "I thought you loved me." I let out a sharp breath, my anger bubbling to the surface. "I did, Logan. I loved the person I thought you were. I thought I loved you," I said. "But the person who stole from me lied to me and thought he could get away with it. That's not someone I could ever love." Before he could say another word, I hung up. A week later, Olivia called with an update. "Logan took a plea deal," she said. "He's avoiding jail time, but he has to pay back every cent he tried to steal. Plus, he has to complete community service, and his credit is going to be a mess for years." "That sounds fair," I said. "He always wanted to live the high life. Now he gets to see what it's like on the other side." Olivia laughed. "You're handling this way better than most people would." I smiled to myself. It's funny. For years, I thought Logan was the one keeping our marriage together. I thought his charm, his big ideas, and his ambition were what kept us moving forward. But now I see it clearly. I was the one holding everything up. He was just dead weight. The day my divorce papers came through, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the couch, looking around my apartment. My apartment. Look, Logan's absence wasn't a loss, it was a gift. A chance to start fresh. A chance to rebuild my life without his constant selfishness hanging over me. As I sipped my wine, I thought about that moment he had walked through the door, so full of himself, showing off his stolen goods like he had won some prize. He had been so confident, so sure that he was the smart one, and now he was the one paying the price. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. This wasn't just the end of a marriage, it was the beginning of a life that was finally mine. The apartment felt quiet in the days after Logan's arrest. His things were gone, what little he hadn't sold or stuffed into his designer bag, but the space felt lighter, as if the weight of his betrayal had been lifted along with him. And for the first time in a long time, I could breathe. For the first time in years, I could sit in my own home without feeling a shadow over me. One afternoon, Olivia stopped by to drop off some final paperwork. She sat on the couch with her usual no-nonsense attitude and looked at me. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "Better than I thought I would," I admitted, handing her a cup of coffee. "It's strange, but I don't even feel angry anymore, just relieved." She smiled knowingly. "That's because you've already won. You didn't just survive this, Rachel, you came out stronger." I thought about that as we went through the documents, finalizing the details of Logan's financial restitution. It wasn't just about the money, though knowing he had to pay back every cent felt satisfying. It was about finally getting my life back. For years, I had let Logan control things, believing it was easier to keep the peace. But now I understood peace built on silence and compromise wasn't peace at all. A week later, the official divorce papers arrived. They came in a plain envelope that felt way too small to hold something so huge. I held it for a moment, letting the weight of it sink in before opening it. My eyes scanned the legal jargon until I found the words that mattered most. Finalized. Irrevocable. I sat down at the kitchen table, holding the letter in my hands, and allowed myself a moment to take it all in. This wasn't the life I had imagined when I married Logan. I had dreamed of stability, partnership, and a future built on trust. But looking around at the home I had rebuilt for myself, I realized I had something better. Freedom, clarity, and the knowledge that I was stronger than I had ever given myself credit for. That evening, Megan came over with a bottle of wine and my favorite takeout. "To new beginnings," she said, raising her glass, "and to the absolute dumpster fire you just walked away from." I laughed, clinking my glass against hers, to never settling for less than I deserve. In the weeks that followed, I started putting my new life together. I redecorated the apartment, adding splashes of color and personal touches that felt like me. For the first time in a long time, everything felt right. I finally took the solo vacation I had been dreaming about for years. I spent my days exploring the coast, enjoying the quiet, and feeling the kind of peace that only comes from leaving everything behind, at least for a little while. Logan tried to contact me a few more times. He sent vague apologies through mutual friends, emails that meant nothing, and even a ridiculous letter claiming he had changed. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. He had made his choices, and I had made mine. Every now and then, I heard bits and pieces about his life. He was struggling to find work, his reputation ruined by the fraud charges. He had moved back in with his parents, still convinced he could talk his way out of anything. I didn't feel sorry for him. If anything, I felt relieved. He wasn't my problem anymore. A month after everything was finalized, I stood by my apartment window, sipping my morning coffee and watching the city wake up below. Sunlight filled the room, shining on the fresh coat of paint I had chosen my favorite shade of blue. The space no longer felt like a battlefield. It felt like home. It was peaceful, it was mine, and it was full of possibilities. I thought about the journey that had led me here. For years I had believed in marriage, in the idea of building a life with Logan. I had ignored that little voice in my head warning me that something was wrong, that his charm was just a cover for selfishness. But now I understood something important. Walking away wasn't failure, it was strength. That weekend, Megan and I met for brunch, a new tradition we had started since Logan left. Over mimosas and waffles, she looked at me and asked, "So, what's next for you?" I smiled, feeling a calm excitement I hadn't felt in a long time. "Honestly, I'm just focusing on myself right now. Work is going great, and I've been thinking about taking a longer trip, maybe somewhere quiet, near the mountains." She raised her glass. "That's what I like to hear. You deserve it." For the first time in years, I felt truly free. I was finally making decisions for me. No compromises, no second guessing, just the freedom to live life on my own terms. Sometimes I still heard updates about Logan from mutual friends. He was struggling to rebuild his life, jumping from one low-paying job to another while trying to pay back the money he owed. The designer suits and fancy vacations were long gone, replaced by a reality he never saw coming. But I didn't waste time thinking about him. He made his choices, and I made mine. The last time I heard from him was through an email, a long, rambling apology that felt more like self-pity than anything real. I read the first few lines, then deleted it without replying. I didn't need closure from him. I had already found it within myself. One evening, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine, thinking about everything I had been through. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the fight to take back what was mine. It had all led to this moment. It wasn't easy, but it was worth it. I no longer felt angry or bitter. If anything, I felt grateful. Logan's betrayal had forced me to see my own strength. It pushed me to stop settling, to put myself first, and to take control of my life again. I learned to trust my instincts, value my independence, and never let someone else take control of my happiness. As the city lights flickered in the distance, I raised my glass to the night sky. "Here's to me," I said softly. "Here's to starting over." And with that, I closed the chapter on Logan for good, ready to embrace whatever came next.